Hello again, my name is Ezra and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a special kind of tier list. This is a tier list ranking all of the killers from Dead by Daylight, but they are ranked by how fun it is as a survivor to play against them, versus how strong they are, or any other tier list like that. This is purely going to be based on how fun I think their power is and how interesting that they make the game, not a matter of how strong or weak they are. So I'm not going to have weak killers at the top of the tier list because you just win against them every time. It's just winning isn't fun. I want to actually play the game, you know? And this is purely my opinion. This is all subjective information, just what I personally like. And going into this with that in mind, if anybody else has their own opinion, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. But if your subjective opinion is different from mine, it is objectively wrong. Incorrect. Let's go. Alrighty then, so ranking them in order. Trapper, I guess I'd say he's probably somewhere around D tier. He's not super fun to play against. He doesn't make the game more interesting. You just have to watch out for traps. And, like, if you're taking it slow and checking for traps, that's fine. You can be meticulous. But then it's just kind of a hassle to disarm his traps. And then if you're in a chase and you're in a place that you haven't checked, maybe you just die. Or you just have to leave the loop. And, I don't know, it's not super fun. The counterplay and the gameplay of the Trapper are both just, not mind games, but like planning. You as the Trapper have to plan where you want your traps to be to block off very, like, vital loops. And the survivors just have to counterplay that. They just have to make sure that they case an area, make sure that there are no traps around it. But then it can get really sucky. The thing that puts them in D tier is Trapper's Basement, or just the Killer Shack in general. Because, especially with the newer, I mean, the add-on that didn't used to exist, that allows him to walk over his traps without stepping in them all the time. He can just carry people down to the basement and trap the windows, trap the doors, and no one can ever get in or out, and that person's just dead. This is not a fun gameplay mechanic to just remove somebody from the game immediately. Yes, it's optimal, but man, does it suck. Because that person just doesn't get to play. Next up, the Wraith. I'd say he's probably a B tier killer. I'm not upset when I run into one, but I'm not particularly happy either. So I'd say that's B tier, like the mid. He's got an interesting power. It's got decent counterplay. He's just a fun stealth killer. He's incredibly basic, though. He doesn't, like, mix up the game or change it in any way. So he's fine to play against. You just have to know your positioning a little bit better and be careful with it. I'll just put him in B. There's not much to say about him. You just have to mind your spacing a little bit and keep an eye out. The Hillbilly. I will put him in A tier. He is pretty fun to chase. You always have that risk of getting chainsawed, but depending on the map, honestly, he's not that threatening. Like, he can snowball very easily with his insta-down, but you can always just vault a window and force him to M1 you, and then you just get away. His chainsaw lets him cover the map very well, and it lets him gain distance very well, but it typically, you don't usually have to worry about the insta-down. And it's so much more satisfying to 360 or just to juke the killer while they're using their chainsaw, because they get that big stun if they fail. It's just so much more satisfying. Very fun killer to play against, but I have not seen anyone play a Hillbilly since I started playing again. And the last time I played was like 8 months ago, and I still hadn't seen a Hillbilly around then. So it's actually technically been years since I've seen anyone play Hillbilly, other than myself, of course. The Nurse. Automatic S tier. This is my absolute favorite killer to play against. Getting it out of the way a little early, but I'm doing the killers in order. I love playing against the Nurse, because she completely changes the game. She's completely unlike any other killer. You just have, it's all mind games. It's all mind games between the killer, and it's all mind games between the survivor. You can't loop her, you can't use windows, you can't use pallets. You just break line of sight, and it's all mind games, all juking, all day. And of course, like, going up against a really, really good nurse, I understand that she can snowball really easily, and that, yeah, she is definitely the best killer in the game. Theoretically, nobody plays her. I haven't run into a good nurse in forever. But she's just so fun to play against. It's fun to play against good nurses, and it's super fun to play against bad nurses. Because she's the only killer that will never catch you if you don't use her power correctly. Every other killer will eventually get enough bloodlust and enough pallets broken that you can get the survivor down, but if they're a really bad nurse, you could literally run them forever. It's just so funny. But yeah, she's just fun because she changes the game. She's variety, you know? Next up, the Huntress. I'd probably also give her a B. I want to kind of lean towards A, but like, I don't know. She could be annoying for her snowball potential. Her camping is very annoying, of course, because there's not a whole lot that you can do against that. But it's also extremely satisfying when you do dodge her hatchets. And, like, a really good Huntress can really suck at loops and can really hurt your feelings. But you can also really hurt the Huntress's feelings if you're outplaying her. So I'll just put her at a steady B tier. Like, picture-perfect Huntresses are kind of annoying to fight, but the regular Huntresses and Huntresses that you can just dodge at least 50% of the time, to where it's, I mean, I say fair, but, I mean, that's just bullying at that point. I don't know. Huntresses are just fine. I don't have positive or negative thoughts about chasing her. Michael Myers. I'd probably say B tier as well. He's just a basic M1 killer. There's nothing special about him. If it's a scratched mirror Myers, I'd put him in A, because once you've learned that he's a scratched mirror Myers, it's all just keeping an eye out for that stealth, listening for his breathing, and then running a really good chase, because he is so slow and he gets no bloodlust. So you can really just abuse a scratched mirror Myers if you're fully aware of what he's running, and if you're not on his map, playing by his rules. It's all on the Michael to get you in that situation. The jump scares are real fun. But a regular Michael, he's just an M1 killer. There's not a lot of interesting gameplay to that. So regular Michael will be in C, Scratch Mirror Myers, A. The Hag. So, this hasn't been on my channel, but a long time ago, I did main the Hag. I stopped playing her because she was too good. I just place my traps around pallets, do really good mind games, and it was just very simple. I just put down all 10 of her traps right at the start of the game, and I just chain those hits. Sloppy Butcher, Nurse Calling. And it was very fun. But eventually got kind of boring, because with the Hag, she's so slow that you can't really just play her as an M1 killer. You have to use her traps. And I eventually got to the point where I would perfectly teleport, and every trap was always a hit. So I would just stand still, teleport to a trap, hit somebody, they run into another trap, and I teleport and I hit them and they're down. And that's the entire gameplay loop. It didn't feel skillful anymore, it was just all intelligent pre-planning. This has nothing to do with how I feel about playing against the Hag. If I'm playing against a good Hag, that's fine. That's fair. Most Hags aren't good, though. Most Hags are toxic, most Hags are campy, and most Hags are just annoying. I hate to say it, because she is one of my more favorite killers to play, though I don't play her anymore. She's just not great to play against. So you can always put a trap under the hook, and then you have to crawl up to get the unhook, and then she'll just come back, or you just run up and you take that hit or that grab. It's just really annoying. But yeah, because of that, I'll probably put her... I'll put her C. I want to put her lower. I'm like mixed between C and D, because like the real toxic Hags are really annoying. It entirely depends on the player, and just the majority of Hag players are toxic because Hag is perfect for that toxic playstyle. I guess I'll put her in D, just for this community's sake, which is really sad, honestly. The Doctor. I'll probably rank him B. Yeah, I think I'll rank him B. It's fun to dodge his shocks, and it's fun to properly space a loop, but against a really good Doctor, there is no spacing. The Doctor will shock you perfectly every single time, and then he'll hit you. Because the shock just stops you from vaulting, stops you from throwing down pallets. A perfect Doctor will abuse that, and he'll catch you every time. And let's move these around a little bit. Keep these in order. Anything that's further to the right is lower than the people further to the left in their tier. As always. Next up, Leatherface. Very, very similar to the Hillbilly. I actually haven't run into any camping Leatherfaces since before my 8th month hiatus. I think that deserves him to be placed into B tier. Like, he's a perfectly fine killer. Again, same as Hillbilly, you'd have to, you just have to run him around. He's basically an M1 killer, and then he'll try and use his chainsaw, but it's pretty easy to just force him to take the M1. It is annoying how easily he gets rid of pallets, but, yeah, it's fine. Because of the camping potential, and because of the thrill of Hillbilly rushing across the map after you, I'm gonna put Hillbilly higher than Leatherface and have Leatherface stuck in B. B's gonna fill up real quick, because I honestly don't feel super positive or negative for a lot of killers. But don't worry, more killers will hit up those other points. Freddy. Freddy. He's just not a good killer. I don't see him much. I did play against one recently, though. If they have the dream pallets, that's perfectly fine. I can see those when I'm awake, and I keep an eye out. And then you just have to pay attention. It's just a matter of keeping an eye out for which pallets are real and which pallets are fake. But then, again, he's just a basic, like, M1 killer. And then with his snares, a lot of Freddy's just kind of spam them. And then he's basically just a worse clown at that point, honestly. Freddy's just not good. He's not interesting. He's just a meh killer. I'll put him in C. The Pig. Another meh killer. I will throw her in B because it is fun to avoid her pig dash. Actually, no. I'm going to put her in A. Because you can boop the snoot. She's the only killer whose snoot you can boop. Because she can crouch down to your level. You could technically do it with Ghostface, but that's just weird. I love the pig. But yeah, mostly just avoiding her dash. That's all the gameplay loop there is to it. And the helmets are nifty, but as a survivor, it just is what it is. Nothing too special about her. She's just a generic M1 killer. Dodging her dash is fun, though. Booping the snoot puts her in A tier. The Clown. I don't have super strong feelings about the Clown. I think I might put him in C tier just because it can be annoying going around loops with him chasing you. He's not a particularly good killer, and he's basically just an M1 that likes to throw bottles and just make it impossible to see. He's just really annoying. I'm just going to toss him into C tier. He's not super annoying, especially because of how bad he is, so you typically just get a free win playing against the Clown. But if he really wants to, he could just tunnel one person down, and there's not much that you can do about it. I don't know, he's just kind of a boring killer. C tier. The Spirits. We have another A tier killer here. maybe S tier. I think just A tier. Running away from the spirit, always fun for me. I love listening for her footsteps when she's phasing, and you just stand next to a pallet, and the second you hear her approach, you get that pallet stun, and it's so satisfying. I do the same thing with Nurse, that's why I put Nurse in S tier. If you perfectly time it, you can stun the spirit, and you can stun the Nurse out of their powers. And it is the single most satisfying thing in this entire game, I swear. But, the spirit can also be pretty overwhelming if she just runs up, hits you, and phases after you while you're injured. Depending on where you are on the map, that's just an insta-down. And it can be pretty overwhelming. And, like, a really good spirit will pretty much brutalize anybody. She is one of the top killers. And it's honestly ironic that I'm putting the spirit and the Nurse both up in S tier. The Legion. They are fine. A lot of people really don't like the Legion because of how much they slow down the game, but I think the Legion's fine. They're basically just a glorified M1 killer, and then they get their power for the, injure everybody quickly, I guess. They can be annoying with that Natophobia, so they just slow the game down a bit. To keep more killers out of B tier, I'll throw them into C, but probably high C. Top of C, honestly. Because, I mean, you get the fun, you get that rush if you do manage to stun them out of their power, or you 360 their power and they just waste it and get stunned. It's so fun. But, yeah, for the most part, they're just a slightly more interesting M1 killer, and they just make the game drag out a little bit. The Plague. Honestly, another D tier killer. She's just annoying. I just don't like fighting her. Because you either have the games where everybody's cleansing, or you have the games where nobody's cleansing. And then it's either you're permanently injured, and that just removes healing from the game, which kind of fucks with some builds, but also almost every Plague will have Thanatophobia. And because it's optimal to not cleanse. If she has her power, she is honestly like the strongest killer in the game for the duration of her power. She's pretty difficult to beat in a chase. But if you just don't cleanse, she doesn't get it. Other than the one that she gets at the start of the game, unless she has add-ons. But like, you can just kind of ignore her, but with the Natophobia, it's similar to Legion, she just slows the game down. And if you have bad teammates and nobody's cleansing, that's just free downs for the Plague. It can overwhelm you pretty quickly. And then if you do have teammates that are cleansing the whole time, then you might just get steamrolled by her power. Entirely depends on positioning and how the survivors played at that point, and how good the Plague is with map knowledge and pressure. But I think no matter which playstyle that you choose as Survivor, Plague's pretty annoying to fight against. And since they usually run Thanatophobia, they also can make the game drag. Ghostface. I'd probably put him in B tier. He's another generic M1 killer, doesn't really have an interesting power that changes up the game much. Just have to keep an eye out for the stealth, gotta win your staring contests with him. And the fact that he constantly goes for staring contests can sometimes make him lose free hits that he otherwise would have gotten. And then you can always just force the M1 if you need to, so that you don't get insta-downed. But yeah. Around loops, him using his power intelligently to like make a red stain disappear and crouching for the mind games, those can be rough, but for the most part he's just an M1 killer. He doesn't have a whole lot going for him. So, just B tier, he's generic. The Demogorgon. Probably another C tier, honestly. He's just kind of annoying to play against. He's just generically good as a killer. He can apply pretty good map pressure with his portals. A lot of Demogorgons like to tunnel, which I really don't like. But in chases, you come up to a pallet and he's just going to open his mouth. And your option is to either stand there and get hit, because it widens his hitbox enough that you can kind of just get hit if you try and put the pallet down on him, or he'll just jump it and break it the second you put it down. Or you run through the pallet, and then he has his mouth open already, so he can just lunge after you. It's a bit of a lose-lose situation. And sure, you can dodge his lunge, and it stuns him for quite a while, but it's not super satisfying. I think he's just C tier. Because a lot of Demogorgons like to play him boring, and his anti-looping mechanic is kind of rough, kind of boring. The Oni. Yeah, probably another A tier killer, honestly. Low A, top of B. I'll toss him an A. He's pretty fun to, like, outplay his power when he's in his Blood Rage mode. Yeah, there he goes. It's pretty satisfying to manage to dodge his ability. And he's just generally cool to witness. But, I mean, when he doesn't have his power, he's just an M1 killer. And, I mean, that's the same as everybody else in the B tier. And his power isn't so overwhelming that it can become annoying, but it also isn't game-changing enough to be an S tier. But yeah, he's just kind of fun to play against. I do like playing against the Oni. The Death Slinger. Maybe top of C, bottom of B. I don't want too many killers filling up the B tier, though. I don't find him super annoying to play against, but he is pretty rough when you're trying to loop him. And they did... I don't know when they buffed him, but they've buffed him from the time when everyone was playing him. Now, still no one plays him, even after the buff that they gave him. But, like, he has way more control over his chain now. So even if you should be completely safe, if you get shot, it's kind of surprising sometimes how far he can drag you and just get that hit. So it entirely depends. But he can be rough at times. Other than that, he's just a normal killer. He's not super interesting. He doesn't change the game all that much. You might just have to drop pallets early, when you're injured at least. Other than that, just a decent killer. Pyramid Head. I want to say C, but I might actually put him in D. His power's not too annoying, but I just don't like it. It can be pretty annoying. Just having to always be mindful of it at pallets and windows. And, like, yeah, you can mind game it, and it's satisfying to dodge, but I don't think that really redeems playing against the power. It's just fine. It is what it is. So maybe high D, low C. He's not that annoying, but having to play around his barbed wire can get annoying. Having to crouch through it or just avoid it. And then his power around loops can always get annoying, because you're either running through his barbed wire as he lays it down trying to hit you at the pallet, or you get that mind game and you just run away. The Blight. Another A-tier killer, in my opinion. Really good Blights can be really, really hard to outplay, but it is pretty fun to outplay a Blight. Just run them in a circle around a big rock, and there's nothing that their dashes can do. As long as you run tight enough corners, that is. But, yeah. I mean, he's just a fast-paced, action-packed killer for both sides, I think. Pretty fun to play against. This is all as a survivor. I don't rate playing him. I'm gonna cut that out. Yeah, I think I'd just rate him, like, middle of A. He's just a generally fun killer to play against. At times. It's very, very satisfying to outplay his power, I should say. And I don't feel super frustrated if he downs me with his power, because it does take skill. The Twins. No one plays this killer. But from the time when they did, when she first came out, I don't know how much they've tweaked her power since then, if at all. I don't think they have. They haven't changed her at all. Unless Victor, I don't think, used to apply the Oblivious status effect. But, I guess C. Maybe D. Nah, probably just C. They're just generally not super fun or interesting to play against. And a lot of them choose to be a little campy and tunnely because their power is a little useless, gotta be honest. Unlike the fact that Victor latches on and makes so you can't go out through the exit gate literally doesn't matter because you can just stand there, and if Charlotte hits you, you just fall out the gate anyway. Their power's just kind of useless, so obviously no one plays them. But other than that, they're just an M1 killer. It's kind of like less optimal to pull out Victor for that quick down. You'd want him to start a chase, and you'd want him for like reconnaissance because of how fast he is. Other than that, they're not a very interesting killer. So C tier. They're not fun to play as or against. The Trickster. I don't know. I guess C tier. I don't particularly enjoy playing against him. They did recently rebalance him, which just makes him faster but throw knives slower, and they take longer for the knives to go down. So it just kind of makes him a pretty poor M1 killer. He's just an M1 killer with a mediocre power that he can use whenever. He's just not good, nor interesting. And his knives can kind of get annoying when he's just throwing them around the loops that they actually work at. I just don't think he's fun. There's not a lot of counterplay to him. Honestly, I might put him in D tier for that. He's just not an interesting killer. I don't think I ever feel any aspect of joy when I'm playing against Trickster. At least with Charlotte and Victor, you can dodge Victor and kick his head in. Trickster, I don't super hate him, but I never have fun playing against him. Nothing against him, he's just not fun. The Nemesis. This will probably be my first E tier killer. Probably just one of two. I really don't like the Nemesis. His tentacle power? That's fine. Honestly, that's fine. Takes 3 hits to down, as long as you're not infected, and you can cleanse yourself the infection. And he has to power it up, so it's not super good the entire time. And like, yeah, later it breaks pallets and stuff, but it slows him down when he uses it. It's fairly simple to dodge if you're being careful, and like, it's not overbearing or anything. But his zombies, entirely RNG dependent, as both a killer and a survivor. The zombies are just RNG, and that sucks for him as a power. But it's massive, it's passive map pressure, which I find incredibly annoying. The fact that his power operates without him doing anything. If a zombie walks up to a generator, just by happenstance, you just can't work on that generator now. You have to walk the zombie away super duper slowly, and then you have to run back to the generator, and to hope that the zombie didn't catch you, and to hope that the zombie doesn't choose to go back to the generator as you go. Otherwise, the zombie will just wander right back over, and starts all over again. You just can't work on that generator. That just sucks to suck. And then even worse is when you're in a chase and a zombie just blocks a pallet or blocks a door, and now you're just fucked. Like, you get that free hit off the zombie, it either infects you or you'll be honest, typically you're infected already, and now you've just lost a health state for no reason. And there's no counterplay to that, because either you let the Nemesis hit you and you just don't run to the zombie, or you don't even see that the zombie's there, because it's not like it's making noise or anything for you to know that it's there until it locks on, because they don't really make the zombie groaning noises unless they're locked onto a survivor. So you won't even know that they're there until you round a corner and run into one, or it gets body blocked by one. They're just annoying. The passive map ability is just not fun, I don't think. So I'm putting them in E tier. Not fun to play against. And here we have the Cenobites. The other E tier killer. I despise, I loathe I abhor the Cenobite. The Cenobite. Just so unfun. You know what? I'm actually going to make a whole nother tier. Add a row below. Trash. The worst. Absolutely hate him. Literally the worst killer in the game. I almost DC every time I see a Cenobite now. They're just so unfun and so boring to play against. Exactly the same reason as the Nemesis, but so much worse. Times it by 50. Passive map pressure is bullshit. If you, as the survivors, just don't go and find his box, everybody's in chain jail. You just can't work on generators, you can't heal, you can't do anything, and now you have to go and find the box. And if a chase starts while you're in that mode, you're fucked. Because the chains will just constantly be grabbing you and stopping you. And what are you going to do about it? Nothing. You just can't vault pallets, can't vault windows. I mean, fast vault, that is. And, like, it'll just cuck you when you're trying to get distance. It's so annoying. The active part of his ability, that's fine. It's pretty annoying to get hit by, but it's not the worst thing in the world. But just the chain jail nonsense every, like, 60 seconds or something, that's absurd, and I hate it so much. And yes, you can have one survivor sacrifice their time to go and find the box and solve it. Still bullshit. Because now, the killer just gets a free chase on that survivor. If they, like, teleport to it and start the chase, the killer almost always gets a free hit, unless the survivor opens it in a very smart location, which wastes even more of that survivor's time. Just the fact that every, like, 60 seconds or so, one survivor has to completely stop playing the game, otherwise all 4 survivors stop playing the game, is just absurd. And if the killer ever gets a moment where they have the advantage, somebody's not going to be able to go and get that box. Or if the killer's around the box, or if the killer, even worse, finds the box, or is chasing the person that has the box, they're fucked. Because not only do they have to deal with chain jail the whole time they're carrying the box while in that chase, the second that they go down, now everyone's afflicted with the chain jail because the Cenobite has the box. It's just annoying. I just hate it. Just passive map pressure should not be a thing. I am perfectly fine with killers that have to use their powers to be able to apply pressure, but if a killer has a power that can passively negatively affect the survivors and just passively win them the game without any interaction, that's nonsense, and it's just unfun. I just hate it. The Artist. Probably C tier. She just is what she is. She's mostly an M1 killer, but it can be annoying when she just dumps her crows around pallets and loops. I mean, she throws up her crows, you just kind of run away from the loop and run to the next one. There's not a whole lot of counterplay to her ability, but also she's just a generic M1 killer, so as long as you just run your loops right, there's not a whole lot she can do. It's just not, it's not changing the game, it's not interesting. It just is what it is. C tier. The Onryo. Sadako. Samara. She has many names. She is pretty cool. I'd probably put her in B tier, maybe even C tier. Maybe low B. I like her because she's very scary. I think that she is the scariest killer in the game, from like design of how she looks and just the way that she moves and the way that she interacts with the game. It's very cool. I love her style. She is by far the creepiest killer in the game, subjectively to me. As far as her power, though, she's kind of generic. She's just an M1 killer, and she can do map pressure with her TVs. And she has a little bit of stealth going for her. But other than that, in chase, she's kind of powerless. So she's just a generic killer. But because of how cool and scary she is, I think I'll put her in B tier. The Dredge. He's fine. Maybe C tier. He has a lot of map pressure, and his power at loops is just good. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of counterplay to him. He doesn't make the game more interesting. Probably just C tier. For the way that you have to loop around him leaving his remnants behind. But yeah, other than that, like, he's just a generic killer. Generically good. Next up, Wesker. My man, look at how cool he looks. I think I'd put him in A tier. He can be kind of annoying just because of how many people are playing him, but I don't think that's a real reason to be annoyed with him. I like him. It's very satisfying and pretty easy to outplay his power, honestly. Straight line dashes. And man, he's so cool. Like, look at him. Listen to his voice. Look at his eyes. He's just so cool. He's a pretty goofy-ass run animation, though. But he looks so cool, and his voice lines are so badass. He's just fun. And his power isn't too overbearing, and it's really satisfying to avoid. I don't really like the infection slowing you down like it does. Like, that's pretty brutal. If you get fully infected and you have the hindered status effect, that can be annoying, but that's kind of a non-issue. I think he's just fun to play against. It's really satisfying to loop him. And he's so cool. The Knight. I don't want to overfill the C tier, so we'll throw him in D tier. He's just is what he is, man. He's just fine. Like, his power's not particularly special, not particularly overbearing, but the fact that he can kind of cover a lot of ground and, like, keep multiple survivors engaged or, like, soft camp pretty well can be really annoying. And at loops, every loop is the same. You get to the loop, and either you throw down the pallet and he immediately breaks it with his power, or he throws out a knight, throws out a henchman, and then now you have two people chasing you, and you either run into the henchman and get hit and you run away, or you run to the knight and you get hit and run away. Yes, there are the standards, and you can go and grab the flag and run, but a good knight isn't really going to let that happen, because it takes so long for the standard to spawn. It's real satisfying to grab that standard and keep running. But a lot of the times, you're just not going to get that chance. The Singularity. I have only played against him twice, because he's quite a bad killer, and no one wants to play him. He's not fun, and he's not good, so no one plays him. To play against him, nah. I'd probably say C, just because he's just a boring, basic bitch M1 killer. Might as well not have a power, because of how useless he is. You just go and grab an EMP, and you just hold on to it the whole time. The Singularity ever comes after you, you pop the EMP. Ruin his power. Not much counterplay for him to do, and there's nothing for you to worry about. He is just a generic M1 killer in chase. His map traversal, pretty decent, if you allow it. The fact that his power entirely depends on the survivors, really annoying for him. So because of that, I just think he's kind of uninteresting to play against, because the survivors have all the power against him. It's just rough, so C tier, because it's too easy to go against him, and then once you take his power away, it's just a generic M1 killer. Next up, the Xenomorph. Look at him go. For style and design, 10 out of 10. He's very cool, very intimidating. I love him. For gameplay, playing against him isn't super fun. I will put him in C tier. Previously, I would have put him in D tier, but I have played against him more, and the more that I play against him, the better I feel. to just put him in C tier. His tail attack, very strong, very annoying to get hit by, honestly. But it's not super overpowered, because you can just kind of dodge it. It can be rough. You have to either get a lot of distance, or you have to keep close enough that you can get that stun, otherwise you're kind of fucked. But also, the flame turrets really fuck with the xenomorph, so you can just slap down a bunch of flame turrets and just run between those. And it's almost as good as just running loop to loop, because he has to waste his time hitting them, or he gets a huge slowdown from the turret hitting him. It just is what it is, man. As long as you spam turrets, I don't think that it's too much to worry about, so just C tier. Next up, Chucky. Kind of want to put him in A tier. I mean, he just came out, so I guess that might just be because how fresh he is. But I've honestly played against him more than a lot of the killers that I've just listed off, just because of how many people are playing Chucky right now, and how you people play those other killers. But Chucky, it's very satisfying to dodge his dash, as I've mentioned with everybody else, and he's just so funny. He has so many voice lines, it's so funny to listen to. Watching him hop over windows is just so cute and funny. Looking at his dumb little legs as he runs around. Watching him get just face full of dirt if you pallet stun him. Just pile drives a child into the dirt. It's so funny. Yes, I know he's a doll, not a child, but you know what I mean. It's just really funny. I think I'll place him in an A tier. His power is interesting enough that you have to play around it. It's satisfying to play against, and it's not super overbearing. But, yeah, A tier because of that. Makes him a little more interesting than M1 killer, and not overbearing or gross to play against, like, the C tier killers. And last, the Skull Merchant, who I have still not unlocked, and maybe never will. I probably will eventually, because I do want 100% of the achievements, but as long as RPD exists, that might not happen. So, Skull Merchant. She's not recently, but since the last time I played against her, she has been reworked. The last time I played against her was 8 months ago and was the reason I quit playing. She completely ruins the game. She completely ruins the meta of the game, and she just made the game so unfun. So many people that I know dropped the game because of her, including me. She just ruined everything. I hate her so much for that. I'll probably put her in E tier. Even though they have allegedly changed her power, it still puts you in broken. Previously, it just exposed you. Now it's just you're broken. I don't know if that's better. That's basically the same thing. But the fact that she passively becomes... what does she do? She becomes undetectable when you deploy a drone for 8 seconds, and then each survivor detected on the radar increases the Skull Merchant's movement speed. So she just base has undetectable and movement speed and knowledge, and you become broken. But her power is useless in a chase. She throws that up next to a loop, it covers too small of an area, you just leave, you run to the next loop. Her power's worthless. So where is her power good? Next to generators. Specifically, 3 generators sitting side by side. It's just the worst gameplay I've ever seen in my life. Honestly, I will throw her in an E tier. I've talked myself into it. I didn't want to put her there because of the rework, and I mean, nobody plays her anyway, so it's not like it matters how fun or unfun she is to play against. But yeah, E tier. Just because of the 3-gen situation. She completely ruined the game on her release, and they've reworked her, and everyone stopped playing her, so that's fine, but that doesn't make her better. I just don't like her. I just have a personal, deep-rooted hatred for her. You know? Just the worst, honestly. But, yeah, just... she pops her drones up next to generators, and your choices are to either break the drones, which That notifies her, so she'll just come straight back and throw up another drone. Choice is to ignore the drone and start working on the generator, and then you become exposed, or now broken, which also gives her a movement speed buff, and again, notifies her, so she'll just come back to the gen, but now you're insta-down. What the fuck are you supposed to do there? And because of how long it takes to break a drone, and how little time that you'll have on the generator, she can just patrol that 3-gen and keep all 3 of those drones up, and there's nothing you can do against it. I do think that 4 players playing in a Discord call would be able to outplay her on a 3-gen, but in solo queue, you will never have a shot. She is so unbearable. And the fact that she gets undetectable as she throws up new drones, even if you're constantly looping those 3 gens, if she just keeps throwing up her drones, there's not much that you can do against her. As long as she never commits to a chase, that you just can't finish those 3 gens. It's super annoying and just wildly inconvenient. She's just unfun, and her power is worthless in a chase, which means you're either fighting her as an M1 killer and she's just using her drones for gen patrol and information gathering and like maybe to cut off a singular loop, or she's just a generic M1 killer and she's just unfun. Or she's doing the 3-gen tech, in which case she's like the worst killer in the game. But yeah, because of that, E tier. Absolutely hate playing against her. Even with the rework. Allegedly. I've not fought a Skull Merchant at the rework because no one will ever play her. She's just... everyone hates her. Full-time killer and survivor side, I guess. So that's everyone. This kind of sums up my thoughts. I guess I'll bounce him up just to even the playing field a little bit. Make the tier list look a little more smooth. And I guess I'll move Artist up. Like, I don't dislike playing against these killers. I don't get upset when I see them. I get a little upset when I see Legion, just because his power's a little annoying. Demogorgon's overplayed because he came back, and his power's kind of annoying to play against as well. Like, the Artist isn't super annoying to play against. Like, her crows are annoying, but, like, as an actual power and gameplay mechanic, it's not... I don't get annoyed. I don't feel annoyed when I load in and realize that it's an Artist. I'm just, like, maybe I'm annoyed in the middle of the chase. But when I find out it's an Artist, it's fine. I don't have that, like, very mild negative reaction that I get when I see any of these killers. So yeah, I think these sum up my thoughts pretty well. For the most part, it's mostly even. I guess there are more bad experience killers than there are good experience killers, but a lot of these are bad experience for the killer playing them as well, and no one plays them. No one plays a Singularity, nobody plays Freddy. I've seen one Skull Merchant since her rework. I barely see Hag. I've seen a couple of Tricksters before his rework, and I've seen a couple of Tricksters after, just because people are testing out the rework. But, like, nobody really plays these killers. Nobody plays Knight. Nobody plays the twins. Like, 0. So, like, I do have more negative experience with these killers, but a lot of them are just garbage killers in general. Nobody plays them. And for the most part, most of the killers are positive. I don't know, I just enjoy the game. This is just how I feel about their powers in particular. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments of how you feel about going up against these killers, and what you agreed with, disagreed with. And more than that, let me know what kind of videos you want to see next. If you want to see me make an actual tier list on who I think is strong, yeah, I'll do that. That's not something I really care about making a tier list for. I'm mostly just making... like, videos like this aren't going to do well. Obviously, it's not going to do as well as a gameplay video. I'm just doing stuff like this because I think it's fun. So let me know if there is anything else that you want to see from me. But otherwise, this is it. And I'll just be doing more gameplay videos. But till then, bye.